What is going on, Hive Warriors? It's your boy Edward V, and today we're going to talk about the new article that came out by Insider called 5 Signs You Shouldn't Do Intermittent Fasting by Experts. And they added that little by experts thing to make you really pay attention. But I'm going to actually go ahead and break down each point and tell you my thoughts on them. Without any further ado, let's go ahead and break it down in this video. Stay tuned. Alright guys, quickly before we start, this video is brought to you by yours truly, Fledge Fitness and the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. If you haven't gotten yours yet, what are you waiting for? With an ergonomic design, aluminum handle, and swivel design, you can't go wrong with the Fledge Fitness Jump Rope. Only $16.50. You can click on the top right hand corner of this video or down in the description box below. And of course, as always guys, thank you so much for your support. Now let's go ahead and jump right into the video. Now we're going to go quickly down the line with number 1. You have a history of disordered eating. Now, the experts that they've used here, unfortunately in this one, they also used the dietitian that was used in Unwell, Christy Harrison, who was adamantly against intermittent fasting. And Christy Harrison is being tagged as a anti-diet dietitian. So she's one of those people who prefer you utilize intuitive eating for you to reach your goals. But the unfortunate thing when it comes to intuitive eating, as the studies show, is that when you apply intuitive eating, you do not lose more weight or lose weight as quickly or at all sometimes as compared to those who are just doing a calorie restriction or any other type of diet. But what intuitive eating does do is help you psychologically, and your obsession with weight loss and those kind of things get reduced, and you're in a more comfortable space, and you are more accepting of where you are as opposed to trying to lose weight. Now, keep in mind, there are things that can happen with your metabolic health that come with being overweight, things like type 2 diabetes, visceral fat that can disrupt things within your organs. So there are problems that can arise from being obese. And if you do want to lose weight, intuitive eating won't be the best thing for you in terms of the studies that we've seen. You do have to apply a certain diet system to lose weight, some type of intervention to lose weight. But this is somewhat of a red herring, because if you say you have disordered eating, therefore you cannot, therefore you should not do intermittent fasting, it's almost the same thing as saying, well, if you reduce your calories, if you have disordered eating and you are someone who chronically likes to reduce calories all the time, then you shouldn't do that. But the unfortunate thing is, if you don't have good calorie management and you don't actually, and you're not trying to create a net negative energy balance within your body in terms of the calorie intake and the calorie expenditure or the energy expenditure, you won't be losing weight. And that is just the cold, hard truth. So any type of diet can trigger a disordered eating response if you have a history of disordered eating. Intuitive eating can help you with that in terms of the psychology of it, but studies show that it won't help you with the actual weight loss if that is the goal that you're going for. Now let's go on to number 2. If you lose your period. Now this is one of the things that was mentioned and talked about, but this is also a red herring. And a lot of people like to use intermittent fasting as a red herring for some odd reason, because I guess the stigma of the word fasting is still has a sting to it, where people kind of use that as a scare tactic for people not to use this system for weight loss. But the truth is that intermittent fasting is not what causes those type of hormonal shifts in terms of your missing periods. It's the reduction, the massive reduction of calorie intake. You can still do 16 hours of fasting, 8 hours of eating, and still be at a caloric surplus and gain weight, regardless of the fact that you're in an intermittent fasting system. Now, if you, this is why you got to dive deeper into the skeleton of what causes, someone to be in a position where they are reducing calories too much. If you find yourself not being able to eat enough on a consistent daily basis, then there you have to reevaluate. But intermittent fasting in and of itself is not the thing that causes these kind of hormonal shifts. It's the reduction in calories. Once again, you can be at a caloric surplus and still be doing intermittent fasting and gain weight. So it's not the intermittent fasting, it's the aggressive caloric restriction that can cause those kind of things. Now let's go ahead and move on to number 3. You experience fatigue, nausea, or dizziness. Now this is something that can be experienced no matter what diet you do. And once again, red herring is used for intermittent fasting. There are people that experience no kind of issues. They might experience tiredness and stuff like that as you're shifting, your habit, your biological habit of how you eat and when you eat, and you're actually having periods of not eating with periods of eating. But this usually subsides after about 2 weeks. But even if you were to just change to eating vegetables, for example, or if you were just to change and do keto, a shift in your diet, a drastic shift in your diet or the way you're eating can cause all of these things to happen. It's not necessarily the fact that you're not eating, because you can still get the daily caloric intake that you need for the day, even if you are applying an intermittent fasting system. Intermittent fasting, yes, can cause these things. The fasting periods can cause these sensations in some people, but it's not the only one that can do that. And if you are trying to find what works for you in terms of weight loss, there are some storms you may have to weather. But definitely always check with a doctor if anything feels uncomfortable to you. Number 4, you're losing sleep. Now this is actually a thing with intermittent fasting that can happen because of the heightened kind of focus, and it actually keeps you very energetic, very awake, which makes it harder for you to sleep. If you're someone that cannot get over the hump of this kind of just the fact that the intermittent fasting may be keeping you up at night, you may want to eat later in the day, kind of closer to the times when you're about to go to sleep, because once you do that, it will help you actually go to sleep, because your body tends to try to relax itself after a big meal. So if you have these issues and you want to get a good night's sleep, then try to see if you can kind of shift your eating window to later in the day rather than earlier in the day, closer to the time when you are about to go to sleep. And remember, just because you're going to sleep, that doesn't change how much food you're breaking down. The energy expenditure is based off of what you do on your 24-hour basis, not only when you are sleeping. So whatever calorie you're not burning sleeping, you'll burn those calories when you're awake. And number 5, you're trying to gain or maintain muscle. Now, people have been able to maintain muscle with intermittent fasting and gain muscle with intermittent fasting. And I, for example, as an anecdotal point, have been able to do that. And I do that when I gain muscle and when I maintain muscle. But it is true, intermittent fasting is not the most optimal, and only because of protein synthesis. And one of the things that elicit protein synthesis, where you're more anabolic than you are catabolic, is meal frequency. The higher the meal frequency, the more anabolic you are than catabolic. But other things that influence anabolism and catabolism and influence anabolism in your favor is exercise resistance training, increasing your calorie intake, which both of these things can be done when you're intermittent fasting, and increasing your protein intake, and definitely ensuring that you are getting at least 0.7 grams per pound of lean body weight. These things can all be done while doing intermittent fasting. The only thing of that protein synthesis bunch that you're kind of leaving out is the meal frequency. So it isn't to say that you cannot do it, you can, but it isn't the most optimal, and that I would agree with. But to stop doing intermittent fasting altogether just because of that, I don't know. It's up to you. You could build muscle and then go ahead and do intermittent fasting. Whatever works best for you. Hopefully this video has helped you guys. And of course, as always, I want to thank my patrons for my Patreon. I'm going to go ahead and put their names right up here.